Today we're covering one of the most talked about news stories in the United States right now. The fatal shooting of a woman by an ICE agent in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This incident has sparked national outrage, political debate, protests, resignations within the U.S. Department of Justice, and intense discussion about use of force, civil rights, and federal immigration enforcement. On January 7, 2026, during a federal immigration enforcement operation in Minneapolis, a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) agent shot and killed 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, an American citizen, at the intersection of Portland Avenue and East 34th Street. Video captured by bystanders shows federal agents approaching Good's SUV, which was stopped in the roadway. An agent approached the vehicle and, according to footage, shots were fired from close range as the SUV moved. The woman was struck and later died at a hospital. Federal officials say the agent acted in self-defense because the SUV was weaponized and driven toward officers. Local witnesses and Minnesota officials dispute that version, saying the vehicle was not moving aggressively toward agents before the shots were fired. Renee Good was a 37-year-old mother and resident of Minneapolis. Her wife released a statement describing her as kind and compassionate, and shared the family's grief over her sudden death. The shooting took place during a large federal immigration enforcement operation involving thousands of agents, part of a broader push by the current administration. Local officials, including Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, criticized the federal narrative and described the self-defense claim as false and misleading. In the hours and days that followed, protests erupted in Minneapolis and other U.S. cities, including clashes between demonstrators and law enforcement. Demonstrators demanded accountability and transparency in the investigation. National politics have quickly intertwined with this incident. President Trump and senior officials defended the ICE agent, framing the operation as necessary to enforce immigration laws and protect officers. At the same time, a Quinnipiac poll shows that a majority of Americans believe the shooting was not justified, with clear partisan divides in public opinion. The incident now features prominently in discussions about the 2026 midterm elections, immigration policy, federal law enforcement authority, and debates over civil liberties. The investigation has become a major controversy. The U.S. Justice Department officially said there is no basis for a civil rights investigation at this time, a stance that differs from historical practice in similar cases. This decision has led to significant internal pushback. Multiple senior prosecutors and leaders in the DOJ's Civil Rights Division resigned in protest, citing concerns about politicization and lack of accountability. At the same time, federal authorities, including the FBI, are leading the investigation and have restricted access for Minnesota state investigators. The shooting has also had broader effects beyond Minneapolis. Immigrant communities, including legal residents and H-1B workers, have expressed anxiety about encounters with federal officers. Vigils and protests have taken place not only in Minnesota, but also in cities such as New York, San Francisco, Chicago, and Seattle. Debates over federal immigration enforcement tactics, use of force policies, and community safety continue to intensify. To understand why this incident has triggered such a strong national reaction, it is important to look at ICE's history and role in the United States. ICE was created in 2003, following the 9/11 attacks, as part of the Department of Homeland Security. Its mandate includes immigration enforcement, investigations, and removal operations. However, over the years, ICE has repeatedly faced criticism for aggressive enforcement tactics, raids conducted without coordination with local authorities, use of force incidents during civil enforcement actions. Unlike traditional policing, ICE agents often operate in plain clothes, with limited public transparency. Critics argue this increases confusion and fear, especially during street encounters where civilians may not immediately recognize federal officers. The Minneapolis shooting has revived long-standing concerns about whether federal immigration enforcement should involve armed, street-level operations at all, particularly in nonviolent cases. From a legal perspective, the key issue is use of deadly force. Under U.S. Supreme Court precedent, notably Tennessee v. Garner and Graham v. Connor, Law enforcement officers may use lethal force only when there is an immediate and credible threat of death or serious bodily harm. Federal authorities claim the vehicle posed such a threat. Local officials and civilian video footage raise doubts about that claim. Legal experts note 3 crucial questions investigators must answer. Was the officer in immediate danger at the exact moment shots were fired? Were less lethal alternatives realistically available? Did the officer follow ICE's internal use of force protocols? These standards apply regardless of whether the officer is local police, federal law enforcement, or ICE. Another major reason this story is trending is how differently it is being covered across U.S. media outlets. Conservative outlets largely emphasize officer safety and border enforcement. Liberal and independent outlets focus on civil rights, transparency, and accountability. Social media platforms amplify raw footage and emotional reactions, often without full context. This has created 2 parallel narratives, each reinforcing existing political beliefs. As a result, the incident is no longer just a shooting. It has become a symbol in America's broader cultural and political divide. For content creators, this makes neutrality and factual clarity especially important. Beyond politics, the shooting has had a chilling effect on many communities. Even lawful residents and U.S. citizens have reported fear of interacting with federal officers, anxiety about routine traffic stops or street encounters, distrust toward immigration enforcement agencies. Community leaders argue that incidents like this discourage cooperation with law enforcement, which can reduce overall public safety. This aspect of the story often receives less attention, but is critical to understanding the long-term social impact. One of the most controversial elements of this case is who controls the investigation. Traditionally, high-profile law enforcement shootings involve independent prosecutors, civil rights reviews, local or state-level oversight. In this case, federal authorities have limited local involvement, raising concerns about conflicts of interest. The resignations within the DOJ's Civil Rights Division have intensified those concerns. Critics argue that accountability must be independent to maintain public trust, especially when federal agents are involved. Looking ahead, several outcomes are possible. The agent may be cleared of wrongdoing, reinforcing federal authority. Civil lawsuits could be filed by the victim's family, regardless of criminal findings. Congress may hold hearings on ICE oversight and use of force policies. The incident may influence immigration enforcement strategies nationwide. Even if no criminal charges are filed, the policy and political consequences could be long-lasting. The Minneapolis ICE shooting is not just about one moment or one decision. It raises fundamental questions about power, accountability, civil rights, and how immigration laws are enforced in the United States. As investigations continue, the outcome of this case may shape policy, politics, and public trust for years to come.